Hi, I'm Andy Renzetti, and today we're going to show you some of the features of the Traveler Vise, the True Rotary, and also we're going to show you some techniques on how to use the vise. First of all, this is the basic Traveler. It'll handle hooks from 28s to 4/0. There's different hook ranges we can adjust this for. We also have a Clouser Minnow arm, which I'll show you how to put in, and a spinning attachment. I'll show you the Clouser Minnow arm first. We can just disassemble the back end of this shaft and just lay your pieces down in order as they come off. Otherwise, you may have to look at your instructions to see how it goes back on, but it's very simple. And we just take everything off, lay that down. You slide this out. You can slide your Clouser Minnow arm in, put everything back together as it was before, and set your tension adjustment, and you're ready to do your Clousers. And it's also very nice for other flies too. The rotary tension is very important. That's very easily adjusted by loosening the back knob and the front one, and you just put a little tension on that and then hold that still and lock it so that you just have enough. It's very comfortable to rotate, but it will stay wherever you leave it. That's very important for like doing eyes and wings and that sort of thing. You can also, if you don't like the crank arm, you can take that off and use the two knobs to set your tension. Snug them up, and then you can put this on the back. Then your crank arm's out of the way, and then it makes it very easy to rotate. The bobbin cradle is used when you tie material in. You just lay it over here after you tie it in, and then you can wrap your materials up and just pick your bobbin up and tie it off and do your half hitch or whatever. So those are the features of the vise. Now Bob and Lefty are going to show you some of the techniques.
Hi, this is a rotary vise, and Bob has another model of the rotary vise, and what we would like to do is show you some of the advantages of a rotary vise over a stationary vise, which I used for years and no longer use. Bob?
Yeah, Lefty, what I really like about this particular vise is the jaws. Over the years of my experience with sticking hooks into vise jaws, I find that this is probably the most friendly vise jaw there is to hooks to prevent breakage.
Why is that, Bob?
Because it's adjustable to every wire size of hook. For instance, the fly tyer that owns one of these vices or buys one of these vices should make sure that they can understand what the jaws do. And if you would just take a look at the two jaws, the separation of the two, and the line, I call it a line going down the middle, but it's just a separation of the two jaws. If the fly tyer would start out first by having a straight, even connection between the two, even space between the two, when you put a hook in and you use the front knob to adjust the hook space or the hook gap, slide it in, just touch it and just lightly tighten it. You don't have to take this big knob and turn it 4 or 5 times to put the proper pressure on that wire to hold that hook.
And you got good straight parallel pressure on there.
Everything is even on here. You don't have that undue pressure where you can fracture the wire in this hook.
Yeah, some vices actually put so much pressure on them that actually the hooks will break when you contact the fish.
Yes, I have talked to a lot of fly tyers already, and they blame it on the hook construction or the manufacturer of the hook. The hook's no good. They want to put a little dry fly hook in their vise, and they put undue pressure on it, and they fracture that thin wire. And the first time a fish takes their fly, the hook snaps off.
Sure, and it was the vise that caused the problem.
It was the vise and the way it was inserted in the vise that caused the problem.
Okay, what are you going to tie first?
I would like to, of course, show them the Clouser Minnow.
Oh, God.
I think you know. Did you ever hear about that Clouser Minnow? What I like about the vise to tie the Clouser Minnow is this arm that was designed to tie the Clouser Minnow. We can actually insert the hook in the vise, and we have all types of room to work around the bottom and the top of the fly, especially when we're constructing the Clouser Minnow. I can turn it upside down, I can go the whole way around with it, and there's nothing interfering with either the belly or the back of the fly. Also, this one particular vise is capable of handling all sizes of hooks, even to make our large half
Big
and
old
half
half
fly.
and half, yeah.
It can be inserted in the jaws without damaging the jaws, as long as the operator adjusts the proper gap and the tightening pressure.
And all they have
with
to
the
do when they
jaws.
adjust it is so it's tight enough that when they pull on the hook, it's not going to move.
That's exactly right. You could actually, we can actually show just how strong jaws are with a slight turn. Let me straighten this up just like we were going to tie a fly. You can actually hold that and take that and just bend that hook completely around without it moving in the jaws.
That's one of the tests of a good vise.
That is definitely the test. Any vise that can hold a hook like this has to be a very good set of jaws in order to do that.
Bob, why don't you show us some of the advantages of rotary vise when you're tying a Clouser Minnow?
Okay, yeah, I would be glad to do that. Again, the first thing we do, we make our little hook adjustment, which I prior made, and we don't need much pressure on the hook holding knob in order to keep that nice and solid in there. And what I like about this rotating feature to tie these, I can turn this all around for me. I can attach my thread on the hook, okay? And the vise is stable enough that it doesn't move around on my table. I can also take this out if I want to and insert it in the shaft. If I want to do any rotating tying, insert the center stem.
The more this is in line with it, the better it is for rotation.
The center stem of the hook right into the center part of the jaws. I can turn this upside down and move it around and actually rotate this if I want to, and there's no wobble in that. Okay, we'll attach the eyes on this. And another thing about the rotating feature, when I put the eyes on the hook itself, I can move this and look at it to see if they're nice and straight across. All I got to do now is just reach up here with my hand or use the knob to inspect this to make sure that everything is nice and straight.
Right.
I can also put our belly hair on and see the whole entire length of the fly without anything being in back of it, that the material doesn't have to bend, it doesn't have to jam up into anything. And I can just lay it on there. I can see the length that I want. Say, okay, that's how long we want to make this Clouser Minnow. And we'll tie this down on here. And I'll just come down in back and see how I can lay the material down on right even with the jaws.
Plenty of room, yeah.
Plenty of room to work. That's all I have to do to that, and the belly stays right where it's at. I don't have anything in the road. And I can come back here and use the actually the rotating lever, or I can come up and just turn the whole system of the Clouser Minnow arm upside down. I don't need to take my hook out of the vise.
This is one of the advantages of rotary vise.
This is definitely a big advantage, especially if you're trying to make a little time. It also saves on taking hooks in and out of jaws, putting pressure at different spots on the wire of the hook. To insert the crystal flash, I like to have it dead on the top. I like to have it dead on the top, so I can do this to it, go around and hold the vise jaw itself at any position I want and pull it straight back, and I can come here and say, okay, that looks good. That's right dead center.
Being able to check all parts of the fly is a heck of an advantage.
Also, the Clouser Minnow alarm allows all my materials to lay nice and flat as I'm working with them. And then, of course, to put the back on the fly, I like the idea of the Clouser Minnow arm again, that I can lay my left hand and guide all my materials right on top of here.
Yep.
And this is one of the great features of this vise, especially when you're tying streamer flies or flies similar to the Clouser Minnow. And of course, we can do the finish off the head. We can do a little whip finish tie on this thing. I can look at it and make sure that my hair is setting up on the top on both sides of the fly are even. and I can remove the tying thread, and I can inspect my fly. This is what I like about that.
Yep.
Making sure my top wing and the bottom, the belly hair is the same. Make sure my crystal
Everything's in
flash
alignment
is
and everything, yeah.
extended out past the hair. I can see the whole fly very similar to like it's going to be when it's fished in the water. Okay, since we got this finished now, Lefty, some other another feature that I really like about this vise, you can put head cement on a little brush, and you can actually take and just hold the cement brush there and turn use the rotating feature to put the head cement on.
Yeah.
Now I know there's a lot of other features to this vise, and this is one that I particularly like also. And I think you should show the folks your indestructible woolly bugger and use the features of the vise to construct.
Well, it
that.
really is indestructible. This is really a standard woolly booger in the beginning. Simply put your hook in, and I'd already adjusted the vise. And we're going to put her thread in. And I've got this a little bit angled up, so I want to get that right. So she's dead centered like you were talking about. Then we put our marabou tail on like you would for any woolly booger. And I like the wet marabou, then I don't have any problems with it. So put this up here. Now the indestructible part starts by using, if you're using one color, you would make just a loop here, but since I'm going to use two colors just to demonstrate that you can use two, what you do is just pull the stuff off the end here like you do on any chenille, wrap one up here like this, go back and get the other one. So far we're doing just about what you would do with any woolly booger. And what happens on woolly boogers is often this thread or this feather breaks, and then of course the woolly booger's spoiled. So what we're going to do is tie this woolly booger in by the back end. Just thread this up, cut this off, and tie it up here just like you would any other woolly booger. Now here is where, wind your thread forward. Now here's one of the things that people don't understand about rotary vices. I've just hung that over there. I didn't do anything. And see, it just stays there. You don't have to tie this on. A lot of people think that when you use a woolly booger, Bob, you got to, or when you rotate a vise, you got to thread and lock this on with a thread. You don't have to.
This feature you're using here, Lefty, is this is called a bobbin cradle. Is that the identification of that?
And all you need to do is just hang it on there, and you can adjust this thing up and down here so that it's even with the hook shank.
I see.
But you don't. If you notice, I just wound up and dropped it over. And then you can rotate this either way, and it doesn't make any difference. It's not going to come off. People think you got to tie a knot on there.
Is the purpose of the bobbin cradle to prevent excess thread from being wrapped on the hook itself?
Exactly.
While you're constructing
and
the
just
fly?
get it out of the way too. Yes. Now, all you do to make an indestructible woolly booger is just pull these down together. They don't have to be in any order. They can be between each other or anything. The key is that they got to be straight. The feather, the chenille, all got to be straight. And then what you do is catch the back end of the feather and the chenille with the hook, with the pliers, and start winding. And you can see here that what I'm doing is twisting the feather inside of the chenille. So there's no way this thing can get out of there. You can actually catch 100 fish on this. Now if you just, you see with the rotary vise, you just wind this up.
That is just simple and wonderful.
And this way, I just want to leave it right there because we've adjusted this thing. We can leave this here. Wrap off the thread. Be careful not to cut the wrong thread. And then just wrap this tight. And what you have is a woolly booger that you cannot destroy. This really, you could catch 100 brim or trout or whatever with this thing. And you can use this for lots of different materials. And it's another advantage. And of course, what you can do here, instead of using a brush, I would just take a needle, just put just a little bit of that on there, a head cement, and just go like that. And it's another advantage. And while this doesn't look as fancy as some woolly boogers, it's indestructible and really takes out.
Yeah, I can see that. Also, with the rotary advantage of the vise, if somebody's tying these let's call them a commercial fly tyer and tying for stores to make a little spending
save you
money.
so much more
They can
time.
probably get 3 woolly buggers done till they got 2 tied
Absolutely.
the other way.
Save you a lot of time.
Save a lot of
yeah.
time.
Let's see another way you can use a rotary vise, Bob.
Okay, I'll tell you what saves me a lot of time here, Lefty, when I'm making your famous Lefty's bug and the Clouser Easy Popper. I like to coat my hook with the tying thread in order for the glue and that to adhere to
Get a
to
better
the
grip.
heads.
Yeah.
And it's very, very simple to do. I just take and hold the bobbin still and turn the vise.
Yeah, and you can
And
see
I can
exactly
coat,
what
you
you're
can see
doing.
how far down the hook shank
Right.
that you're going to cover it.
Yeah.
You don't need to do any wide turns or anything, and you just come on back. Very, very easy. You can line up all your threads just like a little screw,
Yep.
like the threads on a screw, and you can tie this off. Okay, and bingo, it's done. Just that quick
And
and
all you
easy.
do, then this has got place for the glue to grip.
The glue will adhere to all those little pieces in there. I can remove it from the vise, and of course, all we have to do then is just insert the head
Drop your glue on, and you're ready to go.
on that. You can also then, after this is glued, put it back in your vise, and you can use the rotating features to place eyes in the proper places on your bugs. Just by
Right.
pushing eyes, turn it upside down and put your eyes on it.
Right.
It's a very, very good feature, these rotating vices. I understand that you're pretty good with a hackle, too. Winding a hackle with the rotary vise, I think you ought to show the folks how to do that.
This is a very old fly, and I showed this to Bob many years ago, and he and I both agree it's one of the finest flies that you can use for bass, both large and smallmouth. It's called a hackle fly. We call it a red and white hackle because it's simply got red and white hackle, and that's all. Some people call it a seducer, but it really is a hackle fly. Very old pattern. What you're going to do is just bring up some white hackles, and you can make this thing 1 inch or 4 inches long, depending on how much you want it. And I'd like to have it about that long. So, and since I'm at Bob Clouser's, I don't care what happens to the fluff I take off of here. Now you set this up on here, and I'm going to need a little flash on here.
You know, sometimes when you go home, there's some of my tools are missing, too. You ever take notice of that?
Give me some of your flash over there, Tom.
Would you like some red, silver?
Silver will probably be good enough. And we'll just put some of this on either side. And so far, this is what you do with an ordinary vise, but we're going to see in a minute where the rotary vise is so much better.
Something else is, Lefty, too. How comes you use more flash when you use mine than you use yours on the fly?
Yeah, but you know why. Now, we're going to put some red hackle on here. Sometimes we put red and white, sometimes just red. This time I'm just going to put all red. Now, here is where the rotary vise comes in. If you notice, all I've done is wrap the thread, bring the bobbin holder around, and let it set. You don't have to tie this thing on. Now, one of the advantages to a rotary vise is that you can lay this stuff on here exactly where you want it. And if you don't like it, you can always back it up and do it over. But the nice thing about a rotary vise, instead of swinging this over with your hands, this just makes it so much nicer.
This is an excellent way to do a dry fly also.
Can't beat laying dry flies. Look how nice this is laying on there, Bob.
You very probably can make a much better and tighter dry fly by using this feature than if you go around it with your hand.
I think one of the things that people don't realize about rotary vices is that what you just said is they can actually tie better flies than they can with a stationary vise. Not only is it easier to tie, but you can tie better ones. Now we'll put another one in here.
As I was watching as you were winding at it, and you got much better control over that feather than you do if you would take it around by hand.
That's right.
You got more even tension on the material.
And you can see it too. You know, where with your wand with your hand, you're disguising what you're doing a lot. Again, just lay it over there. You don't have to do anything to it. And we just repeat the process, and we got ourselves one of the most effective bass flies that ever came down the pike. This thing's also good for redfish and a baby tarpon,
Yeah,
too.
I know about that fly. You always out catch me with that fly every time you come up here, too.
It does work. Okay, now see how you can just turn this around, look what you want to do, clip that off, bring it back, pull this back.
Well, you have done a lot of things with that fly that you could not do on a stationary vise.
That's right, and you can check this. You know, you can check it all over and look at it and see if it fluffed out. And what you have now is one of the best bass flies that ever came down to pike, both the large and smallmouth. And the hackle is so even on here because you can run this anyway. You can spiral. If you're doing a woolly boogers that you don't want to do the Indestructible, you can spiral it up. Dry fly fishing, the rotary vise is just fabulous. Okay, Bob, let's see what else you got planned.
Yeah, Lefty, a lot of times we like to use deer hair inchworms. I think you know what they are.
Yep.
And you have to stuff them on a hook, you know, and then you gotta take them out of the vise, maybe look at them or trim them. With the rotating feature, you can actually trim that inchworm right in this hook, right in the vise, nice and smoothly. And also, I like to use something called a hair flare tool. Since I'm using the rotating feature, it also helps to have a little tool or something with you that you can help this thing along. And if we just cut some deer body hair, for instance, and we put it in the loop in the hair flare tool and spread this out.
People that don't know about this tool, I mean, it's just a fact. And you can use it for dubbing and all sorts of things,
and
too.
If you just spin and spin and spin, it'll break that deer hair and actually make a deer hair chenille, if you want to call it like that. You see how it's breaking? And that's body hair, by the way. That's not deer tail hair, which deer tail hair is no good for that. Now we can take this, as this is tightening up, and you can see how nice and tight it's getting. And we can actually use this the way it is, or we can cut it in here and then trim it later, which I like to cut it first.
I'll rough trim it because then
what happens, it gets matted down. When you start to rotate your vise, it'll get matted down. And I just trim it right on the thread itself.
This is one fly. This ranks up with sandwine worms and
this is so effective on a lot of fish
and egg patterns. And actually, it's an eastern fly that works out west too.
But now all we really have to do is just take our vise and rotate our vise. Sometimes I wish I had another hand. All these things I try to do at one time.
Never have enough.
And we just never have enough of fingers or hands anymore. And you can actually just take and spin this then, like this, and make it nice and even, coming right up the hook shank. See how that turns on there just from rotating? You can't guide it on like that when you go around by hand.
You're twisting it every time you go around.
You're twisting it every time you go around. And the nicest thing about this, it's almost done. We can take and pack this now and put another section on there.
Make it float better.
But being that we're not tying a complete fly and just showing how to do this, this is all the angler has to do, the fly tyer has to do, and you can pack this by pushing it back tight and then take another section,
repeat the operation,
and you can use the rotating feature after this is all tied up to trim this down as close as you want to that hook. Look at that. And you just keep going around.
You can get it nice and round that way.
You can actually get it completely round the whole way around that hook by just doing that. That's the nice feature about these rotating vices when it comes to doing this. You don't have to take anything out and do it by hand and have guesswork.
And look at any angle on the fly anytime.
Look at all the angles, and you get, I always like to say, a perfect inchworm every time, but it doesn't always happen that way. Okay, Lefty, this is all I have right now. There's many other features that I really like to use on these rotating vices, and I'm sure you have a lot of things that we haven't had time to show here today also.
A couple things, Bob. This can be made into a stationary vise if you want to, so there's no disadvantage there. But the rotary features, and we've only shown a few of them, apply not just to freshwater, but saltwater and for little hooks or big hooks. So if you learn to use one of these, you'd never go back to a stationary vise. And Andy also has a number of attachments that make special application jobs easier. And we hope you've enjoyed this.
We hope you've enjoyed the first in a series of true rotary fly tying tips. Our future videos will include advanced tying tips for fresh and saltwater, along with how to use our numerous attachments and tying tools. With Renzetti vices, attachments, and tools, we guarantee to make any tyer a better tyer. For more information on our products, please write to Renzetti Inc., 6080 Grissom Parkway, Titusville, Florida, 32780, or call 407-267-7705. We want to give special thanks to our friends Bob Clouser and Lefty Kreh for their time, witticisms, and overwhelming knowledge of the beautiful sport of fly tying.